Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Crystal and this is Books Forever After, where I sit on my floor, we talk about everything and all things books. And today we are talking about how I rate and review books. So I figured this would be a great video to have to pen to my channel and just to kind of inform all of these recent reads or book reviews or book recommendations that you'll receive from me and determine how my personal rating review system kind of works. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have that. And with my year of booktube, and it's been a few years since I've been reviewing books, but really my year of being on a booktube, I kind of wanted to have I have a better understanding of how I rate books, and also I'm just trying to get better at actually reviewing books and writing a review on Goodreads and Amazon and so forth. So I'm getting better at it. It is a learning process, I think, as anything new is. But yeah, so this is kind of similar to that. But that's kind of, it all stems from, I don't really do halves or quarter reviews, stars, and I think I do whole stars because I can't, for me, I have paralysis of the analysis in myself, and if I have that too many options, I won't be able to make a decision, or how to qualify or quantify how something is a point star, 0.25 or 0.5 star. So that's just kind of where I'm at. So yeah, so okay, let's get started. Okay. So first off, when I write a review, I have been trying to kind of stick to this formula, and so the first thing is I would try to at least write a synopsis, or at least a brief synopsis somehow, or blurb of what the book is about, without giving away like too many like spoilers. It's very similar to like what the blurb is about in my review. Next, I like to kind of put content warnings or trigger warnings, and also tropes or representations kind of, and I usually try to do it at the bottom of the review as well. So yeah, and then I also, for my Goodreads, I actually have some tags created of tropes, or at least tropes that I love as well, because there's just so many tropes that it can get overwhelming. So I usually try to keep to the ones that I love, or just ones that are really, when you're reading the book, are kind of pop up or are kind of obvious, or that kind of thing, so that you necessarily don't know until you're reading the book that there's that trope there. So that kind of also part of it, because at the same time some of them can be, not going on a tangent, but I guess sometimes tropes can be kind of spoilery. I guess there is that kind of discussion. So I try to keep it to like the basics, basic tropes kind of thing like that. So for me, my favorite tropes are second chance, marriage in trouble, arranged marriage, mysterious stranger, masked balls, forced proximity, of course the one bed trope, as we all know, a house party, found family. I think class difference is also a good one that I really love. So those kind of tropes have been my favorite, especially in historical romance, because I typically love to read historical romance, fantasy romance, and just high fantasy in general. I did go in like I want to say a rabbit hole the past couple of years when I discovered contemporaries that were similar to 50 Shades of Grey that I read a decade ago when I got back into reading. And so I was really into those for a while as well, and I still have my favorite authors, but in general I'm really veering more towards historical and fantasy now. So and I'm actually wanting to start some high fantasy, like where there's really no romance, or there's like a romance subplot sometimes, so like going into Brandon Sanderson kind of thing. So I know he does a little bit of that, so more high fantasy kind of stories. So but I always will read romance, so those will always be sprinkled in, but historical romance and fantasy romance, paranormal romance are always where it's at, so for me. So I also put in my review kind of what worked for me, what I liked about it, or what stuck out to me, and then also what didn't work for me. So was there anything that didn't work for me? If it's a 5-star, usually it's probably not going to be the case. There's nothing that didn't work for me. To me, it's probably perfect, most likely perfect for me, but a perfect book. And then 5s, I don't really do this one, but I do I see myself as I want to include this more, but it's why should you read it, and like why should you read it. And I typically don't really put this kind of a comment in my review unless it's like a 3-star, and I usually do that kind of in my video reviews is if it's a 3-star, because I typically any of my recommendations that I provide, they're usually only 4 and 5-star recommendations. I think for 3-star it was kind of average to me, and I'm obviously, for me, I'm always looking for something that I really liked or really loved or is an all-time favorite. I think that's what every reader is looking for. They don't want to be bored and that kind of thing, and I think that's part of the reason is because Amazon kind of puts 3 stars as still a critical review, because you didn't like love it, so they've been shining, you know, that kind of a light on it. So yeah, I think that kind of works for me for that. All right, so to the ratings. So my 5-star rating system. First off, I think I see Jen from the Book Refuge does this, and I think this is something I'm actually going to start doing. I'll probably create a tag for it in Goodreads as just for these particular ratings for my all-time favorites, and that is a 6-star rating. So that way it's more notable, like, hey, this is it's a 6-star, and like equals all-time fave. It's a new, like, I definitely want to buy this as a physical copy, maybe even multiple copies. I definitely will do a reread of these at some point. They're comfort reads. I'm like, those to me are all-time faves. It's like I'll always be drawn back to it. I always want to have a copy of it on my shelf, on my bookshelf, and I'll reread it, and I always would recommend that book. So those to me is all-time faves. And always, like for me, example, like again, The Magic is one of those that are like, it'll always be an all-time fave, and I always recommend that one. So yeah. Next is 5 stars. So 5 stars to me is like, it's pretty much a perfect book. There was nothing bad really about it. There might have been 1 or 2 things that were very, very minor, but pretty much I loved this book. I will definitely reread it. Sometimes I might not. I definitely want to probably add it to my physical bookshelf. And when I say that is because there are certain books that I rate differently. So historical fiction versus historical romance, I'm going to look at it differently because a different kind of intent or a different thing that you're looking for in that book versus a paranormal romance or, you know, a spicy, smutty book as a 5-star. Like, there's different kind of rating systems with that. You can't, they are not this, you know, it's apples and oranges kind of a thing. So that's kind of the way I look at it. So yeah, and I still definitely probably want a physical copy of it, but if it's also not something that I technically might not reread again, so it's actually perfect. So a good example of this was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That was a 5-star to me, but it's historical fiction. I don't know how I will reread it again. I think the best actually experience I had was when I was immersive reading it and listening to the audio. I thought the audio was the best avenue for that. So it's not something I definitely see myself rereading, but it was a 5-star. So definitely 4 to 6 stars. I'm definitely might reread, or I might want a physical copy of it. So yeah, probably over explaining, but yeah. A 4-star is I really liked it. It was enjoyable overall. There might have been 1 to 2 things I didn't like, maybe 3, and I might reread it. And it's definitely just above a 3-star. It's just that I really liked it. And maybe the things I didn't like are my own subjective opinions, which really, this is all subjective to be honest, but that I could see why something didn't work for me was just because it was my preference and why it wasn't like a 5-star perfect read for me. A 3-star, as I mentioned, it's a solid read. It was kind of meh for me. I liked it enough, and it was usually good writing, their story and characters. Maybe I'm just not the intended audience for that book, and I would recommend, depending on the person, And so usually when I see 3 stars, it's because it's usually things that are outside of my normal genre that I don't really like, or there's just some things that it just felt, maybe some pacing issues that was just kind of boring to me or something like that. Just those kind of things. A 2 star. So going down to 2 and 1 star, these are typically, I'm probably either 2 stars, I typically either I can't enough or I did read the full thing. But 2 and 1 stars I actually are reading, but they can be DNFs at some point, but typically that means I read majority. So 2 stars, I either read it fully or I DNF'd. And 2 star means I just did not like it. I didn't hate it, but I definitely don't recommend. I definitely don't want to read it again. And it's usually because there's either that's pacing issues, there's just character issues, or just things in general with the story that I did not like, or even possibly with some of the writing. A 1 star book is, I hated it. I'm going to rant about this hate. I usually DNF, again, to writing issues. I could barely get through. For me personally, it's just a bad book. Like, there are no bad books, but it was just this bad writing to me. Like, it was not enjoyable at all, and I definitely would not recommend. It was just something that maybe that was, I think usually the only thing that will make me rant about a 1 star book is because it had really obvious writing issues or lazy writing issues, and that kind of thing. So that's typically what it is. Alright, so that is everything. That is how I rate and review books. Let me know down in the comments if you would like to comment, like, how do you rate books? Do you do half stars? Do you do just a whole star? Do you have different criteria on how you rate books? But yeah, that's generally how I do it. I don't do any halves. I just give you 4 or 5 stars, up to 6, that's it. I don't do halves. I go full throttle. So that's how I do it. Alright, so thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.